now finding the relative maximums and minimums of these graphs. So the relative maximum and relative minimum. Keep in mind, when we were looking at polynomials here, I've told you we never quite know exactly how high these go and how low they go. And so I'm saying that we need calculus for this. There's a calculus way to find them. But we can find them with our calculator, and that's what we're going to start to do here in Algebra 2. We're going to use our calculator to find out some features about the polynomial. So the first thing we need to know is how to do relative maximum and minimum. Now, why is this point right here, I shouldn't put the circle, sorry. Why is this point called a relative maximum? Because it's not the highest point on the entire curve, right? There's points up here, all these points, the curve goes forever up. They're all higher than it. So you can't call it a maximum. We call it a relative maximum. What does it mean? Relative to its little area here in the circle, right? Relative to that area just there, right? If I get rid of the rest of the graph, it is the highest point in its area. So we'll say relative to its area, it's a maximum. And same thing with this relative minimum. All right, so we're going to look at how do we find those. So we're going to say our relative, let's find our relative max first. We want its location. It's x and it's y, the x coordinate and the y coordinate. So we're going to come over here to our calculator, and we're going to hit our y equals button, which will bring us to this, it will bring us to this menu. And now we're going to type in this equation. So the x button is right there. Cubed, we're going to hit the caret, and then the 3, that puts us up in the exponent, and we type 3. I'm going to hit this over arrow to get out of the exponent, okay? And then go minus 5x plus 12. I'm going to hit graph, and there it is. Actually, I got to show you, I was doing something before. I want to bring this back to our standard window. So if you're in your regular window, you're going to see this, okay? And we're going to look at how to adjust our windows. So, for instance, that neat feature I just clicked on quickly there is this zoom button. All these buttons up here have to do with like graph stuff for the graph. They're all functions and features for the graph. If I hit zoom, I can do zooming in and zooming out and all this other funky stuff. So if you ever just want to come back to your regular standard -10 to 10 on the X window and -10 to 10 on the Y axis window, it's called zoom standard. So I can hit zoom and then 6, and it brings me back where the X's start at -10 and go to 10, and the Y start at -10 and go to 10. Now this window is not good enough because I can't locate my maximum in the window. So I've got to look higher up. I don't want my Y's to stop at 10. Maybe I make them go up to 20. So that's what this window button does. If you think of this as a window that you're looking through, it's telling us that the lowest X it has is -10 and the highest X is 10. And it says the X's go up by 1. For the Y's, it says the lowest one is -10 and the highest one is 10 and they go up by 1. I want to go down to my Y max, and you should be doing all of this with me so that you learn how to do it. I want to look higher than 10. Let's look all the way up to 20. Let's increase our Y's to 20. Once I have it typed in, I can just hit graph and go back to it. So now our Y's don't just go up to 10, it goes all the way up to 20, and I can see this maximum and this minimum. Another thing you can do is there's a lot of wasted space over here on the left and on the right where there's no graph. So I want to pull my window in tighter. Maybe I don't want my X to start at -10. Maybe I want my X to start at -5 so I can get a better look at this curve. And maybe I want my X's to end at 5. So we're going to go back in the window and we're going to change our lowest X to -5. And we're going to change our highest X to 5. And we're going to hit graph. See, that gets us a little bit of a tighter window to see all the features of this graph. Typically, we like to see the y-intercept, the x-intercept, and the maximums and the minimums if we can. All right. So now we want to use this calculator to locate the coordinates of the maximum. This point right here, what's its x and y value? So I'm going to hit, if you see I have all these buttons up top here, these deal with the graph. They also have secondary buttons where I can use them to get into those blue menus that you see up top here, table set, format, calculate, table. So if I hit the second button and go to this one, calculate menu, we're going to use this one quite a bit. So I want to calculate our maximum, so number 4. Okay, So first it's going to tell us that, yeah, we have this curve here. So it's saying what the equation of the curve is. They're making sure you have the right curve. And they're asking you for a left bound. So what this means is our maximum is right here. The calculator wants you to tell it where to look in between. What two x's do I look in between? So when it says left bound, you want it to say how far it's asking how far left should I go to look for this thing. So we're going to pick an x value that's definitely on the left side of this maximum. So this maximum looks like it's somewhere in between -1 and -2. So I'm going to put in -2 as my left bound and watch what the calculator does. It puts a dashed line through the x value -2, a vertical line. So now it knows it's not going to look any further left than that for the maximum. Now it wants a right bound, so I'm going to put it at 0. And now there's a dotted line on x equals 0, so you can't see it because the y-axis is there. But now it knows it's not going to look any further right. So you're helping the calculator out. It's looking for a maximum now between these two x values. Somewhere on this interval, it's going to find that maximum. So now it wants your guess. So again, it looked like it's kind of close to -1. It's definitely a little bit left of it. But for my guess, it doesn't have to be that great. I'm just going to put -1. And then the calculator is going to find it. So it found exactly where the maximum is. It tells me down here it's a maximum, and it gives me those coordinates. So the coordinates are 1.291, it looks like. My eyes don't deceive me. Oh, it's negative. Yeah, it's a negative x value. That's the x coordinate of that maximum. And the y coordinate is 16.303. Now we want to find the relative minimum. All right, so now we're going to do the same menu, the second calculate menu. And now we want to find minimum, which is number 3. So now we want this low point here. So it's asking me for a left bound. So what's just to the left of it? Again, I can use 0. I'm going to put in a half just so you can see that dashed line. So it knows now that it's not going to look any further left than that, and now it wants a right bound. So I'll go on the right side of the minimum I'm trying to find, which looks like that's at 2, but I'll put 3 just to be safe. So now it knows it's looking between those two x values on that interval from 1/2 to 3 for a lowest point. So now it wants a guess. I'm going to give it a guess of 1. And it locates it, and it tells me actually it's at 1.291. And the y value is 7.697. All right, so that's how you can use your calculator to find maximums and minimums. There are going to be some problems here where, like with windows and stuff. So let's look at number 20 and graph that one. So if we go back to y equals, you're going to pause the video here and try to get ahead of me. Type this into your calculator. So pause the video and do that. Okay, welcome back. I'm going to do it now. In case you're having trouble, I'll walk you through it. So the X button is right here. The cubed is going to be caret 3. And then minus 2x squared. There's actually a squared button here that I can use for the squared. Minus 4x plus 8. We're going to hit graph and take a look at this curve. So it looks like I already have a nice window. Just to show you that, remember we went all the way up to the 20s on the y's. And I also brought my x values in a little tighter. I'm going to hit zoom 6 to go back to my standard -10 to 10 window. And there it is, right? So it's up to you if you want to zoom in a little bit or not. We've got all this wasted space on the left and all this wasted space on the right. It barely fits at the top. I'm going to leave it in this window, this standard window. So we want to find our maximum. So second, calculate maximum. That's number 4. They want a left bound. So the maximum's here. -2 is definitely to the left of my maximum. So I'm going to put in -2. Now they want a right bound. I'm going to use 1. 1 is definitely on the right of my maximum. Looks like Christina wants me home for dinner. Okay, now it wants a guess. So the maximum looks like it's at like -1. So I'm going to put in -1 for my guess. Hit enter. And it's going to tell me there's your maximum, and it occurs at, so I'm going to say I have a relative maximum at -0.667. We're going to go to 3 decimal places. and then 9.481. Okay, now we're going to find that minimum. So second, calculate minimum. Now we want that low point, so they want a left bound. So I'm going to say 1 is definitely on the left side of that minimum. And now they want a right bound. It looks like 3 is definitely on the right side of that minimum. So now they know to look between 1 and 3. They want to guess. I'm going to tell them it's 2. They're going to locate the minimum and tell us it's at 2, 0. Okay? So I'm going to have you look at trying to do these two on your own.